Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. Now, in a previous video, I went through getting started with the GP-5, which is this pedal here from Valeton. If you haven't checked that video out yet, maybe go and have a little look at that one first. But I did say that I was going to delve into the world of MIDI, and in particular using an app, which is this app here, which is the MIDI Pad 2 app. It's a $3 or a £3 app that you can get hold of from the App Store. And the idea of using MIDI is broadly the same regardless of what kind of MIDI controller you are using. So the fundamentals are going to be the same, but I'm obviously just going to demonstrate this using this app here today. Now, the GP-5 is a fantastic device. If you haven't checked out that previous video, go ahead and have a little look at that. And there's loads of other content online you can check out. But obviously it's limited at what it can do because it only has this single foot switch. So it's really good that we can expand on things that we can control within the pedal using a MIDI controller or a MIDI app in this case, which is the MIDI Pad 2. Now you might also notice that I'm using a WIDI device over here, which is the CME Pro WIDI U-Host. And I'll explain what that is in a moment, but basically it's just a way that we can send MIDI messages wirelessly from the iPad to the GP-5. So if you are interested in doing it that way, there is some really good gear out there so you can send MIDI wirelessly basically. But you could also do this with a physical connection as well. So you can come out of your iPad and then run into your GP-5 that way, and you wouldn't necessarily need a piece of wireless gear. But for me, it's really good to just have the iPad on a stand or away from the GP-5. There's no physical connection in place. And I just really like wireless setups anyway, so I'll cover as much as I can in this second video, and yeah, let's get cracking. So if you're new to the channel, have a little look around. You might find other things of use as well, and consider subscribing so you don't miss any future content. Now, in terms of connections, what I've done here is I have my iPad connected to the WIDI U-Host via Bluetooth. And the way that I've done that is I've used an app called MIDI Emitter. It's a really good app to use if you're using an iOS device like this. Now you'll just open that up and you'll see a list of your wireless Bluetooth MIDI devices. You can see I've got the U-Host available. It's not connected. I'll hit that and it will connect. And it's as simple as that basically. So now my iPad is connected to the U-Host, and the U-Host is also connected physically this time via the USB input in the back. So you could have a really small USB cable and you could just maybe stick this or mount this onto the side if you wanted to keep it nice and compact with the GP-5 as well. And the U-Host also needs power to it as well. So I've just got this plugged in at the moment, but you could use like a power bank or something like that to provide power to the U-Host. And you could keep this a nice compact setup, say on your pedal board. So you could have everything nice and tightly organized and just have the power go into the U-Host, obviously your DC power go into the GP-5, and then one small USB-C cable connecting both of these. And then obviously that information can be sent wirelessly across from your iPad. So now the iPad and the U-Host are connected. All I'm going to do next is I'm going to open up my MIDI Pad 2 app. And you can see I've got 25 pads that I've set up. And in the previous video, I said there's 2 that I'm not using. So there's 23 usable pads here. Now, these are almost all of the commands that you can send over to the GP-5. It's not all of them. There is a volume, there is a patch volume that I've not included in this particular layout, but I'll show you a little workaround with that afterwards as well. All right, so that's all the physical connections. Obviously, the information is going to be sent wirelessly from the iPad to the GP-5 through the WIDI U-Host. That's basically what's happening in this situation. If you are interested in checking out some CME Pro devices, I'll leave links down below, and I've also created some content on that. So you can go ahead and check those out if you're interested in those as well. So we've got all the pads set up here. There is a list of the MIDI commands that you can see. If you go to the GP-5 manual, you will see a list of the MIDI commands that you can send, and obviously with the CC values and how to set them up. But I'll just run through them first of all, and then I'll show you how I've set them up. So we've got, I've just put 5 patches at the top. And you can see I've got patch 0, patch 22, 38, 67, and 89. So if I press patch 0, in fact, let me just go to a different patch first of all. And if I tap patch 0 will load up 22, 38, 67, and 89. And it's obviously happening straight away, which is great. Also in the MIDI Pad 2 app, there is a latency reduction as well. If you're experiencing any latency, you've got a little option to use latency reduction. So that could help you out as well, but I don't have any latency here. Not that it's noticeable for me. I'm not triggering any drum beats or anything like that. It's absolutely fine for what I'm using it for. And then I've got the bank increase and bank decrease. So this is where we're going to go up or down in banks or groups of 10. So if you look, we've got 89 selected on the GP-5. So that will go up to 99, then number 9, 19, and I can go back down in banks of 10 as well. You can see that these ones are set to toggle. So that's the way that they're going to work with these pads. And then I've got patch increase and patch decrease. So that will just go up and down incrementally. So I'm just going up or down like that. Then I've got my song up and down. Now this is the song list mode, which will go through A, B, and C. So I'm just going to go and change the mode to that A to Z mode. And now you can see I've got A selected, which is the pure clean. I've just set this up as my first song in the song list mode. And I've got A, B, C, D, and E. So I can go through those in a predetermined order as well. Again, if this isn't making much sense, go and have a look at that previous video. And hopefully that'll be a little bit clearer for you as well. And then I've got this one here, which is the control, which is going to toggle on or off the effects. So I'm just going to go back over to my preferred mode, which is the control mode. And you can see here I've got a noise reduction and a distortion currently turned off. I can turn it on, obviously using the pedal. I can turn it on and off that way, or I can also use this pad over here to turn it on or off as well. And then I've got my tuner that I can access immediately from this pad over here. Obviously I can still use the foot switch by just holding it down, and that will engage the tuner. But I've also set up this pad to do that as well. And then at the bottom, I've got the 10 blocks that are available. Now, you're not going to be able to see all of these light up because we can only see 3 visually on the screen. So I'm going to open up the app separately as well, so you'll be able to see this. But the ones that we've got available are noise reduction and distortion on this particular patch. So if I tap noise reduction, that will turn on or off. And then distortion will turn on or off as well. So these ones I can also turn on. So now I've got the pre-effects on. I've got the amp and cab turned on. We just can't see them on the screen at the moment. All right, so this might be a better view. What I've done is I've opened up the apps side by side. So we've got the Valeton Suite app on the left, and then I've got my MIDI Pad 2 app on the right-hand side of the screen here. Now, obviously, we use the app to connect to Bluetooth directly to the GP5, so I can still turn things on and off. I'm not using the MIDI Pad 2 app if I want to use the app this way, but the main thing is that we can see what's happening on the app. So you might have the app open on your phone or something like that, and you can still see what's going on here. So as mentioned, we've got the noise reduction I can turn on or off. You can see it turns on or off on the pedal if I'm using this pad over here, but you can also see it through the app as well. And I'm just going to turn them all on so you can see, well, I can't turn them all on. I can't turn the snap tone one on, but I can turn the amp and cabs on, can turn the EQ, the modulation, the delay. Now you see the reverb here is currently on. So when I tap this one time, it won't go off. It's not going to toggle with the state of the pad that I've set up. When the pad is lit up, that means that it's set to 127, which is the maximum value. And then minimum value is set to off. So that's the way that I've set things up. If you're not too familiar with MIDI, I'll try not to go into too much detail of how MIDI works. But basically, you just need to understand that it's a way of devices being able to communicate. And we're going to do that by setting up CC messages, which are control changes, basically. So that is, in a nutshell, of what MIDI Pad 2 is capable of. And you can clearly see that it's working through the app over here on the left-hand side. Okay, so how have I done it? Right, so when you open up your MIDI Pad 2 app, you can go and create a new project. And I've just created one called GP5. Let me open up a blank one. Let's go and create one today. I'm just going to call it, we'll just call it test. And then I'll open up that test. Now you can see the layout. Obviously I've got this set to landscape mode at the moment with the iPad. So you can adjust that if you wanted to have it the other way around and it would automatically adjust. But you can see if I tap edit in the top right hand corner, I can then edit exactly how many pads I want on the screen. So the page dimensions are set 4x6. That means we've got 6 pads going across and 4 going down. So if I just want to make 1 pad, I can just go down to 1 pad. So now I've got 1 pad that I can set up to trigger 1 command. Let's say if I wanted to do that, I can change the color of the pad. I can set it to pad or toggle. So the state of toggle means that you might have something turned on or turned off. And I'll talk about that later. I can send a note message. So if I want to trigger a drum sound or something like that, if I'm using a different device, or I can send a program change. Now, a program change is the traditional way of sending information to change patches or presets or memories and things like that. But the way that the GP5 works is it doesn't accept program changes. We have to set up a control change message, which you might have also heard as a CC message. So basically, every single command that you're going to send has to be a CC message in this case. And as mentioned before, if you go to the Valeton GP5 manual and scroll down to the MIDI control information list, you will see a list of the CC numbers down the left-hand side, and they will have to correlate with the ones that you're going to send out. So you can see I've got a list of channels here. I've got up to 16 channels. The Valeton GP5 will only receive information on MIDI channel number 1. So you're going to have to leave the channel set to number 1. Then I've got a control number. The control number is basically the CC value. And this can be a little bit confusing. but I'll try and make it as easy as possible for you. MIDI can be sent from 0 to 127, which is 128 different ways. And some devices like this one in particular will go from 1 to 128. So there is an offset of 1 that we'll have to factor in every time we set up a CC command. Now, depending on what MIDI controller or MIDI device that you're using, because you might not want to use an app like this, the idea is the same, but you might be one number or one digit away from the way that I'm going to set things up in the MIDI Pad 2. So we're going to factor in that little offset when we talk about how to set things up in a moment. And that's basically it. You've got some other preferences that you can have a look. You can change the name. You can set that latency reduction that we talked about before. And obviously change how many pads that you want to use. So it's entirely up to you. You might not use all of them. If I go back to the one that I'd set up for the GP-5, it's probably making a little bit more sense now that you can see things and how I've set up the 5x5 grid for this particular layout. All right, so the top 5 are the patch changes, and obviously they will change the patch depending on whatever patch that you want to set up. If you just wanted to have 100 pads like this to go through all of your 100 patches, you could of course do that. You can see these ones are not set to toggle. These ones are just set to pad. So it will just go to the patch. It won't toggle it on or off because we're not interested in setting a toggle for that particular command. So I'm going to go across. I'm going to choose my patch 0. You can see I've named it patch 0. I've changed the color. It's set to pad. It's a control change on channel number 1. And the control number is 1. Which, if you have a look at the MIDI control information list in the manual, you will see it needs to be a CC value of 0, and that's what I'm talking about with the offset. So the control number is basically the CC value. Technically, this is 0 because it won't go below 1, if that makes sense. So I'm always going to be 1 higher with the control number that I set up than the CC value on the MIDI information list in the manual. So that's the CC value of 0, technically. The up and down value will be the 0 command that I want as well. So it's always 1 away. So 1 for this is 0 on the pedal. If I go to patch 22, you can see that I've now got exactly the same commands. Channel number 1, control value of 0 technically. And then the up and down value is 23. Now, don't forget, this is 1 away, so it will load patch 22, which is why I've called it patch 22. Even though it's sending a value of 23 in this case, it's loading patch 22. Now, hopefully that makes more sense as we go on, but just remember I'm always 1 away in the iPad than what the manual says. And depending on what you're using, you might be exactly the same as what it is in the manual. Okay, so there are your patches, dead easy. Now the bank up and down are set to toggle. So the only difference really is I've moved all of the other pads I've set to toggle because I want to toggle something on or off. Or if I leave it on pad, it will behave when I press the pad and when I release my finger from the pad, in which case it will send 2 MIDI commands, and I don't want that to happen. So that's why I've set up toggles with the pads in this particular case. So the bank down is set to toggle. It's a control change on MIDI channel 1, as we've talked about, and they're all set to MIDI channel 1. And then this now is a control number of 23, which if you have a look in the manual, it will be 22. And then I've got an on and off state, which is basically 0 to 127 or 1 to 128 in this case. Now the bank up is exactly the same, but that's the control number of 24 in this case. Patch down is 25, patch up is 26. Now the song, which is what we talked about when we're going up or down within the song list menu. Now the song down is 30 and the song up is 31. The control is 70, so that's when we're going to turn on or off the effects like we would do using the foot switch. And the tuner is 59. And then the pads underneath go from 49. Obviously, this is the same order as it would be in the app, but if you're going to rearrange your blocks in different orders, then it's up to you if you wanted to leave it like this or move them around. But it goes from 49 all the way up to 58. So that's just incrementally from 49 to 58 for your 10 blocks. So we know that they all work. I can choose different patches this way. I can go up and down in my banks, up and down with patches like this. I can engage the tuner. I can turn on or off the effects. I can go up through the song mode or down through the song mode. And I can turn on or off those individual blocks that we talked about before. But if you are having issues with the way that you're setting things up, it could be a few things. MIDI does make your head scratch a lot of the time, and it does mine as well. But when you get your head around it, it's not too difficult, especially if we're just sending control changes or CC messages in this case. You might just need to factor in that offset as well. It can be a little bit confusing when we're always 1 out when we're sending messages from the MIDI Pad 2 app. and we're always one away from the actual CC number that's in the manual. But if you can get your head around that, you'll be all good to go as well. The only thing from the manual that we're missing is actually the patch volume. And I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll just change like an up or down here. But what I wanted to do was show you a different way that we can change the patch volume. So I'm going to open up one that I've called volume. So you can see it goes from 0 to 100 in groups of 10. You could, of course, have 0 to 100 with 100 if you wanted to do it that way and be really precise with your volume, with your preset volume. But I thought, okay, we'll keep it nice and simple-ish for this. And I've just changed the colors of those pads as well. So if I literally tap now from 0, you can see how they're going, they're just changing colors, and you can see where I'm at with the volume. It's quite nice and visually stimulating. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I kind of like to do things like that rather than keeping it all simple and plain and boring. Let's make it a little bit more visually stimulating that way. So we can't see on the GP5 the volume status, but all of these are all set in a similar way to what they were before when we were talking about the other pads. I've set everything to pad. I've given it a name, changed the color, and it's a control change on channel number 1. The value is 8, and this is a value of 7, a CC value of 7 normally, but we're 1 away, so we're 8. I've got my up value, which is 100, 101 in this case, and then the down value of 0. You can just leave that down to the bottom. And I've just obviously just changed that so that I'm going down in groups of 10 till I get to the very bottom. And then what that will do is if I go and open up the app again, the Valeton Suite app, and we take a look at patch settings, you can see the preset volume at the top here. And we'll split that with the MIDI pad. So you can see the preset volume, and you can see this is my volume controller. Now, obviously, I can tap any one of these pads, and the preset volume will adjust accordingly. So I don't need to use my finger to swipe up and down, but it's quite nice to be able to do that. You can turn something up, or you can turn something down. You can go to 100, you can go down to 0. But obviously, if you just wanted to get up to a certain level, you could just tap that particular level and it will go there. So that's quite cool as well. And I just wanted to have that separate to show you. I didn't include it in the main MIDI pad template, but that's quite cool that you can also do that as well. All right, moving on. In the previous video, I talked about a workaround that you could use to technically turn on or off more than the 3 blocks that we can control on the device itself. So if you haven't watched that video, do go and have a little look at that. But basically, we've got access to 3 blocks that we can turn on or off on the screen. And under patch settings over here, we can enable or disable the ones that we want to use. So if I tap reverb, you can see I've got no other way of turning on or off the other blocks because we can only see those 3 on the screen. And that's the limitation of the device itself. But what if you wanted to use a MIDI controller like MIDI Pad 2 to toggle on or off more than 3? It is possible. So I'm just going to leave those 3. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this so that it turns on all 3 of these at the same time. So now you can see this foot switch will turn on the pre-effects block, the delay, and the reverb. And you can see that's happening on or off. And then if I go to my MIDI Pad 2 app, the control pad will also behave that way. So it will turn on all 3 or it will turn off all 3, which is really cool. But I want to turn on or off more than 3. So the way that you would do that, I'm just going to open up a different one that I've created. I've just got a couple here. I've got a multi-effects pad and I've got a 9 blocks pad. I'll explain what they are in a moment, but basically I can send more than 1 command on each of these blocks. So I've got my control change sending the CC value of 69, which is set to 70 here. And that, if you look at the MIDI commands list, is the same as this foot switch. So it's just going to turn on or off the 3 blocks. But also below that, I've got the specific blocks that I want to turn on or off as well. So 56 would be a modulation. So that command's going to turn on or off the modulation. 57 is the delay. And 58 in this case is the reverb. So that means it's going to behave slightly differently now. I'm going to choose a different patch. Let's go and choose something like this one here. And I'm going to show you exactly what's going to happen. You can see on the GP5, it's switching between the delay and the reverb, but there are other things happening in the background as well. And if I go and open up the Valeton Suite app, and let's run this side by side like we had before, you can now see the reverb turning on, the modulation and delay turning off, which is great. But don't forget, we haven't got modulation set here on the screen. So that's showing me that it's working, even though I don't have modulation set as one of my patch settings blocks. So if I go and say noise reduction now I've got those 3. And if you think about it, it's now going to control the 3 that we've got, but it's also going to control the 4th one. So we've actually increased the amount of blocks that we can control with a single pad. So now I've got reverb that will turn on with 1 press, and then delay, modulation, and noise reduction, which will turn on with the 2nd press. But again, you can only see the 3 on the screen because they're the 3 that we've set in patch settings, but the extra command or commands that we've set within the pad will toggle on and off the different states. In this particular case, I also had delay and reverb set to this pad, but they're actually already engaged in this preset. So it probably wasn't the best example to show you, but I wanted to show that we could do this and it doesn't restrict us from using just those 3 pads that we can turn on or off. Okay, so I've called this one 9 blocks because it's going to change the state of almost all of the blocks. The only one that I have not controlled is this snap tone block here, which is the one that we would use to load our NAM files and things like that. And if I engage that, it will disengage the amp and cab. So that's basically the one that I'm not using. But this pad now is set up in a way that it will send the control status message, which is the one on the foot switch itself, to engage or disengage the 3 blocks we've got in patch settings. But also it will turn on or off the other blocks. Now you may or may not want to control 9 blocks with a single press, which I don't think we will, but I just wanted to show you that it is possible. So when it's off, noise reduction, distortion, amp, cab, and delay are on. I tap it, they all go off, and then I've got my pre-effects, EQ, modulation, and reverb. So it is possible to do that. If you're having issues with the blocks not lighting up at the right time, maybe 1 or 2 of them are engaging or disengaging at the wrong state. So now you might want to have the pre-block on instead of having it in that particular state. If you are having that kind of an issue, then you just need to go down to where it says the up and down value and switch those around. So turn the up value down and the down value up, and it will just flip the state of that particular block. So it's a really useful app to get hold of. And everything's being sent wirelessly over to the GP-5 through the MIDI U-host. Again, I'll leave links down below if you want to go ahead and check those out. And seeing as though we're talking MIDI, there's one other thing that I wanted to show you, and that is Touch OSC. I'm in the middle of just creating a template for that, and I'll make another video on this one very soon. And if you're interested in learning about this one, stay tuned and we'll go over that in another video as well. But Touch OSC is a lot more customizable. The idea is the same. We're going to be sending MIDI commands over to the GP-5, but I've just been able to customize this myself rather than using the MIDI Pad 2 app. So if you're interested in this, stay tuned for another video and get yourself subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any future content as well. There we go, everybody. A full-on MIDI tutorial for you. I hope it's made sense. Let me know down in the comments what you think. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta.